Hey everybody, Bullets to Bibles with Tony and Don. Welcome. I hope you enjoyed today's show. We're going to talk about several things. We're going to talk about the backstory of Bullets to Bibles. We're going to talk about our special guests that we have lined up for you and the ones we've already had on. And then we're going to talk about one of our heroes, a person to me that stood for a lot of things besides just God. I think this person walked and talked God and ultimately paid a price for what he believed in and for the weak and oppressed. So to start today's show off, I want to go ahead and start with Psalm 82:3. Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. What's that mean, Dawn? What does it mean to you?
So, and what that means to me is there's a tone of responsibility, and that maybe personal responsibility. Ultimately, knowing though that God is at the front and center. And if we go to God and we know God and have that heart and relationship with God, that He will use us how He needs to use us for the situations, maybe specifically to that verse you opened up today, the poor, the oppressed, the needy, and many other situations beyond that, but just specifically to that verse. That's kind of what it means to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. To me, it means to liberate the oppressed, to not forget about the ones around you that may not have everything that you have, may not have anything for that matter. And we're on a mission to serve God and to serve others around us. Our value systems should be predicated on serving. Our belief systems absolutely have to be predicated on God.
Absolutely. And I'm going to throw one more in there, which is the greatest commandment, and that involves love.
Right. Two parts.
Two parts.
Two parts to that one verse.
Got to love God first, so we'll go to Him. We'll listen to Him. We'll let Him be our captain, and then we're going to take that love in turn, and we're going to love our neighbors as we love ourselves.
We are going to love our neighbors the way we wish to be loved.
The way that we wish to be loved.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the backstory, Bullets to Bibles.
For those of you out there who are listening, Bullets to Bibles is a concept that Tony and we've talked about this. At first, it was discussed as a possible radio show that was driven at helping and healing military members, first responders, providing them, resources, a sense of community, just a venue and a place for them to come to hear, to listen, to share. And then as we started playing this out a little bit more as being a possibility to do this, we realized that everyone in any of life's everyday circumstances have something that they struggle with, challenges, afflictions, oppression.
A lack of value or belief systems.
Right. And so that became then, I think, the basis for which then we laid the foundation for Bullets to Bibles. We knew that faith had to be at the center of it, and how that faith can be used to navigate through people's pasts or our pasts, presently what we're dealing with, and then hope for the future, a hope in God, a hope in restoration, a hope in love. You could fill in so many things there, but that is, I think, where we are with it at this particular point. And as Tony's going to talk about some of the guests that are going to be on up and coming shows, I reflect a little bit on our past guests and how they've already brought that, in my opinion, and we hope that you'll share that with us as well. But I think that we believed that they brought those parts to the show
Amazing stories.
as well. They're amazing stories.
And there's so many more amazing stories out there that need to be tapped. You know, it's like stumbling across a song you never heard before. And you're like, man, where did I not hear that from? I mean, why haven't I heard it until just now? There are so many stories out there of people that have struggled, that people have done heroic things, that people are in recovery right now. It's amazing testimony to what Bullets to Bibles is all about.
And even to the point where maybe God wasn't such a presence in their lives at a certain point, but they felt the call to action, or the call to responsibility or acceptance.
Call to action. I love that.
A call to action at a certain point. And from our previous guest, our most recent, I think he really outlined that well
Stephen.
for our audience. Stephen Williford, really, when we asked him, you know, the question, how did you see God personally in that tragedy? And he absolutely was able to say that he felt that God used him specifically for that purpose, the call to action.
And you know something, to that point, Mike Moeller,
Absolutely,
our
Mike
retired
Moeller.
Green Beret, he talked about his faith quite a bit before the show, and even after. We talked about some things, and it became very apparent to me. You know, I knew Mike from a very soldier type basis or relationship, but we never really talked about faith back in those days. But to be honest with you, I was more Saul than Paul. And but what I realized about Mike is that he carried faith with him every time he went to combat, every time he was deployed, all the training that he did, jumping out of a plane, you know, at 15, 20, 25,000 feet. I mean, God was on his shoulders, and he was a very faith-driven guy. So Mike used that to drive him.
100%. And we're hopeful that the rest of the guests that we have lined up are absolutely going to share their stories that will have different flavors.
Yeah.
They'll look different.
Approach.
It's a different approach, but faith, again, will be at the foundation of some of these stories too. I want to talk about one more part of Bullets to Bibles, and this is specifically directed at Tony. Tony, you've had this journey from fighting for our nation, for our nation's freedoms, and preserving and protecting the rights that we have here as Americans, and quite frankly, just as human beings, to then fighting for finding God's purpose and place in your life to serve others and to love as God first loved us. So your fights have been different at different points in times and along your journey, and then a recognition, a transformation story from how those fights looked different for you and what they meant to you, to where you are now and finding your purpose to bring that element, that fight in a new form, in a new way, again, God-driven. So part of this Bullets to Bibles is taking bullets that were used in fighting in, Tony, your military experience and your career, to now fighting for Bibles, simply put. And if you want to add on that or elaborate, you know, feel free to share.
You know, as a young guy growing up around here, I don't think I really ever had a sense of purpose. You know, I struggled with a lot of things, you know, growing up. It could be anxiety. It could be a lot of things. You know, there was a loss of family members. I had an aunt that I was incredibly close to that killed herself. I had a grandfather that I was incredibly close to that died from cancer. These were young age events that they helped shape me in a way that probably wasn't good back in those days. And I think I became lost because of it. And so I joined the military and did quite a few things in the military. You know, served for 25 years as a medic, as a pilot, combat pilot. mostly all gun ships, AH-1 Cobras and Apaches and Longbows. I had a chance one time to fly a Little Bird at the 160th. That was my ultimate dream. That's probably my biggest regret, but I took my family over my career. And so at 25 years, I ended my career and moved on. And after that, I went into politics, serving Pennsylvania state senator and getting involved with the forensic audit of the Pennsylvania election processes and procedures, and finding out how corrupt politics was, and then understanding behind the scenes what politics was all about, how it operated, how politicians are not out for your best interests. It was all, for me, it was very much a learning process, and I got lost. I got lost with all of the fighting that I had to do, whether it was in the military with combat, fighting in the Senate, fighting for the grassroots to bring them together, and continuing to serve. It wasn't until one day when I started getting closer to understanding maybe I see my purpose now. I went ahead and enrolled in school to go back to school and get my master's degree in theology, that my eyes started to open up to the things that I was learning. And then I started, listening more to what God sounded like and how he talked to me, and started learning about things like the spiritual trinity, the spiritual mind, heart, and eyes. I started learning about God's omnis and how he is everywhere, unlimited power, unlimited knowing, the omnis. It all started to come together for me. And I remember sitting on the couch with you one day as I was studying, writing my paper about John, and I felt God save me. And this powerful journey has led me to where I'm at now with you, to serve others. And I realized sitting there that day, I truly was saved at that point. God came into my soul. And now I know that I have a bigger purpose. And in this Saul to Paul story that I'm now living, it's true. So it's time to take all the cuts and bruises, all the tears, all the fears, the failures, the successes, and shape those along with my abilities and yours, and bring that home to a Bullets to Bibles mission, which is to serve those around us on behalf of God, doing his work while we are here in a physical form, knowing that we will spiritually live forever. So I want to bring that to our soldiers. We want to bring that to our soldiers, their families. When families deal with PTSD, it's not just the service member that deals with it. It's the people around them that deal with it, the wives, the children. We talk about, there's been numbers. I've always said 44, not that I'm trying to celebrate this in any way, but we talk about 22 service members committing suicide every day.
That's the commonly, I think, used number.
There are numbers that have always challenged that 44 veteran suicides every day. But then what we don't talk about is how many spouses are ending their lives due to the fact they can't live with it. And something that I just realized is that the children are ending their lives because they can't deal with the home anymore. Oh man, something's got to be done.
Right.
And the other thing is, we have communities out there helping other communities. You've got in the military, you have the special operations community helping the special operations community. I don't think anybody's really targeted the entire community, and that's my personal opinion. And I think what we need to do is we need to join forces. And what we've set out to do was to join forces. We want to take the mission on ourselves to help those in need, the soldiers. Well, I say all military and their families, first responders. We've got, when we're downrange fighting or downrange training, we've got our first responders back home taking care of the safety, security of our homeland. And then we have the other first responders tending to the health and welfare and safety of those afflicted. What's happening with those groups as well? And then you have homeless. And you know, there's a majority of homeless people out there that are adolescent or children. What's being done about that? I know this is a large mission. Mm-hmm. I know that it's going to be probably more initially to handle, but strength in numbers. And that's the other part of this. And a part of the show is for outreach, to bring people into this mission, to help us, to help one another. And I think truly that's the vision that I think we both share. And it really is going to be about strength in numbers. And there's a lot of people that have been very gracious to help us get started with this, right? We've got Ted Nugent. Man, Ted, God bless the guy. I mean,
Thank you, Ted, and thank you to Ted's lovely wife, Shemaine, for hosting a segment on there in support.
Yeah, he's the Motor City man for sure, but he's a big dude with a huge heart. And I will tell you, not to speak for Ted, but he's got a huge place in his heart for veterans and first responders. Mm-hmm. He celebrates them every day. He's a patriot in every way. You may not like what he has to say or the way he says it. I would say you're too much of a tender heart, but get past it. He's got a great message, and he is an incredibly selfless person. Both him and Shemaine are. So thank you, Ted, and thanks, Shemaine, for that. I think this may be a good segue into our guests.
I agree. I'm very excited to let the audience in. It's a little reveal, a little teaser for some up and coming great people who have journeyed in their way and had their own calls to service and calls to action selflessly, and how maybe faith or God has either carried them or shown them or helped them along the way also. So great messages that are going to be part of these upcoming shows. So Tony, why don't you share a little bit?
I'm catching myself on something. We did a little Tony review.
We did.
Let's do a little Dawn review. Dawn, you bring an incredible amount to this as well. You've been a long life Christian. Mm-hmm. You are an incredible human being. You've also been educated in the fine arts of psychology and education. So talk a little bit about that.
For those of you who may know me, I am one who doesn't like to talk an awful lot about myself. But at this particular point, to share with our audience, to have a better maybe understanding or just some background information about me as well, and to not make you feel like you're out there on the island with the attention all by yourself. I have walked in Christian life from very young, and it doesn't mean that I stayed committed and dedicated to that Christian walk. It means that I have always loved God with my entire heart and soul, and always went to him in prayer and felt that he had guided me at different phases in my life.
When did you start practicing?
Probably around 3 years old, 4 years old.
Wow.
And that was solely because
I'm not going to tell everybody how long that's been, because then I'll dime your age out. So I know that I don't want to get beat up for that. Go ahead.
My parents were responsible for that. You know, they walked me down to a vacation Bible school, and off I went. And my parents fell in love with that church community and the people who embraced us and expressed a very sense of love, you know, and that love kept us at that particular church for years and years and years. And so as I was growing up in that church. I served in various different capacities. I was at one point the Vacation Bible School director. I was very much involved in Christian education, where I would teach Sunday school classes to not only the children, but then I also did some adult Bible study classes where I was leading. I served in leadership roles and capacities at the church also. So I was very much involved. God has always been a very, very big presence in my life, even at the times when I fell
And so, yeah, and then
have had my own cuts and bruises
did
along
that?
the
Do you
way.
think those times had anything to do with inspiring you to go to college? And where did you go to school? Was it local?
It was a local university.
Got you. And what did you study in?
I studied bachelor's in psychology, and my master's degree is in counseling education.
So you bring the other part of this, right? The helping those on a different level with different levels of expertise. I think I probably have more of the real world wounds, and you've got more of the ear and wisdom to talk to about some of these things. So I think it'll make for a very good set of tools to help with our endeavor. Well, okay.
We're going to let God take it from there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's his roadmap anyways. All right, let's talk about our guests. So we've had Michael Moeller. Mike, retired Chief Warrant Officer for Green Beret. I think he said he had over 20 deployments, 6 combat tours. That was an incredible show. Then we had Stephen Williford, the Barefoot Defender. Incredible act of heroism. He hates being called a hero. He hates being called any of that. He was a lifelong plumber. And talking to Stephen, it's kind of what he wants to be known as. But I love his humility, both his and Mike's. Mm-hmm. All right, so those were our two. Then we obviously had Ted.
Right.
Ted. I was on Ted's show. I was on Shemaine's show. And then we've got several others. So we've got a gentleman from the area who has had some lifelong struggles, has had his own challenges, and now he's turned into a nationwide, nationally known tattoo artist. Mm-hmm. And he's going to be on our show. We've got a fine Christian lady who's going to come on and talk about her health issues and how she's able to persevere through it and being able to survive. We've got a retired Marine Command Sergeant Major who's going to be on. We've got a CIA operations officer. He's going to come on next week. We've got a legend. I'm incredibly honored by all of our guests, but we have a legend within the special operations community who has agreed to come on our channel. And when I asked Mike about this gentleman, Mike stopped. He was like, yeah, dude, this guy is the real deal. Vietnam veteran, has a book out. I mean, we're talking about a serious guy known in a very serious community. I could go on and on about that. We have a family that we talked to that had lost one of their children in a very unfortunate accident. A very distracted driver killed their child. And, you know, when we talk about our guests, it's not only what happened to them, but how God's brought them through their challenges or how they found God through their challenges, or in some cases, unfortunately, they haven't found God yet. This channel's open to everybody. And somewhere along the line, everybody's going to have something to associate with. I want to open this up a little bit too. I got this list that I want to make sure I covered everybody, Dawn. We've got a very dear friend that's going to talk about what she's had to deal with. She's a local business owner, gave her career up to do her business. Mm-hmm. And she's going to talk about her life and what she's had to deal with one of her children. We've got some serious, heavy-hitting Texas attorneys. They've got their own YouTube channel, and they're going to talk about gun rights, and they're going to talk about protection of gun rights and your constitutional rights in general, but they are some heavy hitters. We've got a Texas state senator, a veteran, and a Texas state senator who just won. And I love what he does. It's a good story nonetheless. And we have another Special Forces Green Beret soldier that is a Purple Heart recipient who is going to be on the channel. He's a highly decorated combat veteran as well. And we've got another guy that I just closed the deal on yesterday who's going to be on our show. He's a former Army Ranger, multi-tour combat veteran who's a nationally known speaker who's going to come on. And I think that's the list right there. I had one other person that I had on the list, but they said they've decided not to do it.
Well, I think the thing is that they are up and coming so quickly now at this point.
Yeah, we can't take on more than we can handle.
Right.
But we're blessed nonetheless.
We're having to pace ourselves. And again, right. Very blessed for how this is moving.
Yeah.
And I have to just put a little something out there.
Yeah, go ahead.
These fantastic coffee mugs.
Yeah, it's celebrating.
Bullets to Bibles. It's celebrating our sort of initial start. And tell us what you think. Do you like them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and give some away as a promotion to get folks interested in what we're doing, or, I guess as a marketing tool to what we're doing. This is not a cash cow. We're not looking to make money on anything we do.
No.
It's a give back. And the more people that understand the branding of what we're doing, the more hearts we can touch, the more people we can help. And that's what that's about. I mean, it really is what it's about. So, Dawn, you know what I want to do is I want to talk about our hero.
Yeah, one of our heroes, absolutely.
Yeah, one of our heroes. One of our heroes, and I want to start with this verse that I have right here. It's Proverbs 31:8-9. Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. I think that's a very fitting verse for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Mm-hmm. Wow. I can't help but get emotional when I talk about somebody like him. Selfless service. People, it's a shame. They judge. The first thing they see about someone is that they're different, but they don't want to understand. I've got a lot of Black African-American friends, as you do, dear brothers and sisters, and people come up to me and say, I don't see color. I do. I embrace what God gave us. We're all different, and that's good. But some people couldn't get past the fact that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an African-American male. I'm going to tell you about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Do you know who he was named after?
Martin Luther.
He was. Mm-hmm. His father gave him his name out of respect to Martin Luther. And little did his father know that his son would be part of a Reformation, a civil rights movement, equality. It's a shame we even have to talk about civil rights. It's really not even civil rights, it's human rights. Freeing and liberating the oppressed. It's been happening forever. It's been happening forever. Israelites, the Gentiles who believed in Christ, then and now. Race and religion play a huge part in our society today. Much of it good and much of it not. So let's talk about Martin Luther King Jr. He was born January 15th of 1929, and he was assassinated April 4th of 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee, on a balcony, giving a speech. He was trying to unite He was trying to bring together awareness and lead his flock in a path towards freedom. And he was also trying to bring about awareness. We may look different, but we believe the same. And first and foremost, we are all God's children. You know, Dr. King came from a lineage of Baptist ministers. His grandfather was a Baptist minister. His father was a Baptist minister. And guess what? His father-in-law was a Baptist minister. You know how he got his start in civil rights? Rosa Parks. When she was on the bus, she was asked by a white passenger to move. That's what started his journey in civil rights. It wasn't like he was trying to make money, like some of these posers nowadays are trying to do, using racism as bait to enrich themselves or political divisiveness. The man saw someone being oppressed. And I think he looked at that person, and only he would have known. He looked at that person as a human being, not as an African-American female. And I can't fathom it. And it's good that I can't fathom it. And I know you can't either. That we can't understand that. And that's good that we will never understand that kind of oppression. You know, Dr. King wasn't born with a silver spoon. You know, he had to work. He had to, you know, one of the things I read was that he went ahead and worked in the tobacco fields in Connecticut. And there's a lot of people around here, including my father, that worked in the tobacco fields in Connecticut. I wanted to go. I couldn't because I had a broken arm. But he was a real guy. You know, he had his struggles too. And, you know, he was a leader. If you want to really look at what he brought to the forefront, it was leading by example, selfless service, promoting equality and human rights. And, you know, I've really had a deep respect for him, not only as a human being, as a minister, but as a leader. Man, to be able to bring that number of people together, Don. Whenever I was in the government as a civil service senior leader, excuse me, I used to teach leadership classes, and in one of the classes I would focus on Dr. Martin Luther King and his leadership ability and his ability to bring people together. So it's an amazing story about an amazing man that I encourage everybody to get to know Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. much better and really emulate a lot of what he did. First and foremost, you emulate Jesus and God. So a way of living. But Dr. Martin Luther King was an incredible human being nonetheless.
I think it's going to go right back to, again, our greatest commands, our commandment, you know, love God and love each other as we would want to love ourselves.
Yeah.
And love as God first loved us.
Yeah.
It's really, really that basic, but yet it's not. It's met with its challenges.
Yeah. You know, there's something else too that Dr. Martin Luther King showed me. And that was strength in numbers. Dr. King looked at what was happening back then as segregation. I would tell you it's still happening. We, as a society, are still being segregated. Racial boundaries, racial divides, political boundaries, political divides, religious or spiritual boundaries, spiritual divides. It's a shame. And, you know, what Dr. King did was he brought people together to fight against that. We, absolutely, as like-minded Christians, have to stick together. We have to bring people in. We have to assemble, not divide. That's what he was trying to do. And anyone that thinks that politics is bringing us together, you know, we've got a show coming up about the state of politics in Pennsylvania that's going to showcase how politics is used to divide us and how politics was used against Dr. Martin Luther King. It was used strictly against him. It was a shame on every level, frankly, and it may even have killed him. But that's another story, and I'm not even well-versed in it enough to talk about it. But I really wanted to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King as we celebrate Monday in remembrance of him, his memory, as a Christian, a leader, and as a human being, and as a brother. So any parting words, Dawn, anything we needed to talk to that maybe I've forgotten about?
I think we've given our audience quite a bit today. And we hope everyone loves what we're putting out there. And I think you had mentioned this before, Tony, but if anyone has any feedback, we'd certainly love to hear from you. Any suggestions or ideas on maybe topics that you would want covered, or just subjects. That's
reach out to us, and you can do that.
Reach out to us
through Facebook or through our YouTube channel with comments. I think in the near future, we'll start putting out more information about how you can contact us. But right now, that's about all we can handle. We're getting a lot of great feedback. I mean, the support has been overwhelming. Everybody, there's been a huge outpouring of support and love. So I appreciate that. So, Dawn, you want to close us out with a prayer?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Heavenly Father, it is always you that we look to keep at the forefront of the things that we do, the ways that we behave, the things that we might say. We seek to treat others as we wish to be treated. We ask that you help us in that conduct where we may fail and falter in not having that commandment truly look like that commandment. We ask that you be with all of our audience members, giving them the hope and the encouragement and inspiration. Instill that in their heart, help them on their walk, no matter what point they may be on. We ask that you find them, you meet them, you embrace them, and you love them. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And to Dr. Martin Luther King, where we go, let's go as one. God bless all of you. Take care and have a great day.
Bye.